persecution for years, 5, 10, 15, 20 years. You may be dealing with some issues. You may be on your bed of affliction. You may be suffering mental anguish, physical anguish, or you may emotional anguish. You could have family problems, financial problems, or you could just have internal problems, maybe physical problems, or you just be worried. Mental, physical, any kind of problems. We're all going to have those problems. But there's a reason behind it. And it's for a divine and perfect purpose. Sometimes God needs a vessel to declare His grace and mercy through. Just like with Job. Like I said, the reason why I believe God had allowed the devil to test Job, was because Job was afraid. And it says in the Bible that being afraid is a sin. We're supposed to keep our minds stayed on Jesus. So God had to get a message over to Job. Job, why are you afraid so much? Why are you so scared? Why are you so worried and burdened down with all of that? You got it going on, man. You don't have to be afraid anymore because I'm with you. But God is saying, I got to talk to you, Job, so I got to take everything away from you first. And then maybe I can communicate with you on a level that you'll understand. And then I'll be able to bless you. You know what I mean? And then you won't be so afraid this time. Okay? Now, like I said, this scripture answers a lot of the questions for being persecuted. The Lord is testing us and tempting us and allowing the enemy to persecute us to humble us. Okay? Some people will turn to God in the midst of the persecution and some people will not. Okay? To test us, to see where our hearts are, if we're going to continue to serve Him. Sort of like in the case of Job. Okay? Now, a lot of people would choose to backslide, or as it's called, or just doing what they want to do, and to avoid being persecuted. But the reality of it is that you're going to be persecuted anyway, one way or the other. You may try to, say, okay, well, I'm going to do what the enemy wants me to do. I'm going to succumb to their desires and their wishes. I'm going to bow down to them. You know what I mean? And then do what they want me to do so that I can continue to get what I want to get. Okay? But all the while I was suffering as a slave to righteousness, not as a slave to sin. See, there's a difference. When you're suffering as a slave to righteousness, you're suffering for doing what's right in the sight of God. Okay? When you're suffering as a slave to sin, you're suffering for your own sins. For as a murderer, as a liar, a cheater, an adulterer, something that you did to cause the sin to come upon you, that's suffering as a slave to sin. Okay? I was suffering persecution for the cross of Christ. I didn't volunteer for the position. I didn't elect to be a part of that. But by me not being a victim, by me not be succumbing to the enemy and saying, I'm not going to be like you. I'm going to just serve Jesus. I'm going to be my own person until I can decide who and what I want to be. I'm not going to be like you. I'm going to follow after Jesus. You see, we're talking about my book, You Can't Curse What God Has Blessed. And that'll be available on lulu.com. I'm also available for public engagements if you would like. Just hit me up on Facebook, actually, Dr. Sylvia Black. Okay, now, Jesus bore His own cross, and so must we bear our own cross. There's a cross for everyone with my name on it, and there's a cross with your name on it. Okay, now in order to get the crown of life, we have to bear a cross. Okay, I know it's hard, and it may seem, you may say, why do I have to go through all of this mess? I mean, I thought that once I became saved, now my life was going to be easy. Wrong. Now you become saved, now you're going to lose your life, okay, before you gain it back. See, there's so many rules and prerequisites to this walk, this Christian walk that we have. And a lot of times people just have this imagination and this thought in their mind of, delusions of grandeur. You're going to be all happy and peaceful and whatnot when you become saved. But the reality of it is, like Stephen, people are going to be more angry and infuriated at you, because of the way you talk, because of the way you walk, because of the way you act. You're different from the way they are. And they want you to be like them. They want to be able to control you. They want to be able to dominate you so that they can say they get the credit for it. But the reality of it is that God is the only one that's going to be able to get the credit for this. Okay? Now, I know I'm going to talk about as much as I can on this broadcast, but Satan doesn't have any power, any more power over God's people than God allows him to have. Like when he came and asked him if he could test the servant Job. He had to ask God's permission, but it wasn't that, God wasn't just saying, oh, I'm waiting, let Satan ask me, before I do anything. This was a preordained move. You know what I mean? It was a God-ordained move. God had already ordained it to happen. He already knew that the devil was going to come to him and ask him, to test Job. He already knew that. You know what I mean? Nothing that happens in this world is not known by God already. He gave us birth. He gave us life. You know what I mean? And so God knows everything. Okay, in John 17:14-18, New Living Translation, it says, I have given them your word, and I have given them your word, and the world has hated them because they are not of the world. Just as I am not of the world, I do not pray that you should take them out of the world, but they should keep them from the evil one. If you were the world would love you, and the world would love its own. You know, you can't love God and man. You got to love one or the other. You know what I mean? You can't, be both, one or the other, Because if you're following after Satan, you're going to be following after Satan, and you can't be following after God if you're following after Satan. If you're following after God, then you're following after him. You know what I mean? But since we serve God and we do exceedingly abundantly above all that we could ever think or ask, the world is going to be against us. That doesn't mean that they're going to succeed at what they try to do. It's just that means that they're going to hate us. But see, God owns everything, and we're an heir of salvation. So therefore, if God be for us, then he's more than the world against us. What looks like in the natural may seem like things are going haywire. But God is working in the background, in the spiritual realm, to bring about good and order in a Christian life. Ultimately, we are the ones that are going to go into heaven. We're not going to go to hell like the enemy. Wouldn't it be a sad mistake for you to end up to suffer here on earth and then go to hell for all eternity too? Now that would be tragic. But we're going to try to keep that from happening. So today we were talking about my book, You Can't Curse What God Has Blessed, and Dr. Sylvia Black. And I just want to thank you for joining me today for Real Estate, Religion, and You, which airs every Wednesday right here on Time Warner Public Access TV Channel 20, Buffalo, New York. And also Saturdays from 12:30 to 1 right here on Time Warner Public Access TV Channel 20, y'all. And I want to ask you to join me again next week for the same time, same station. Hit me up on Facebook, YouTube, SBlack3001. Peace out.